Well, there are a lot of correctable things that we've got to get better. Um, some mistakes defensively that are fixable, and some things offensively that we got to do better. We did a lot of things very, very well. We led for a great majority of the game. So there certainly are positives. So we always show our guys things that need to be corrected, but we also always show them the things that we're doing well and that we need to continue to do well. So we got an opportunity to look at that stuff, and so a recovery day, a day to recharge, and we got to get ready for tomorrow.
Coach, how much can be taken from just last year's Eastern Conference Finals, where it was this situation, team up 3-0, and the Game 7 was forced?
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons to be motivated for this game tomorrow. When you're the head coach of an NBA team, you tend to get information on things. So one thing I just heard in the last few minutes is that the league is making logistical plans for a trophy presentation on our floor tomorrow, and so that's something that I think should make our players' blood boil and our fans' blood boil, and it's just another layer of motivation to extend the series.
When you look at what Andrew's been able to do in this postseason, his shooting percentage is up, his points per game is up, everything is up. Just what have you seen from him being able to rise to this occasion for you guys?
It speaks to him as a competitor. He's unafraid. Has a low key personality, but he's a fiery competitor, and he lives for moments to rise to the occasion. And so he's had some amazing things over the last couple of years. Hitting the game-winning shot. In LA last year, a lot of big shot in Game 3 of the New York series. Had a huge game against the Warriors last year, in Golden State. It's these big moments are one thing, but his consistency is another thing. So real proud of him, and I know he like the rest of our guys are looking forward to getting back out there and competing tomorrow.
He's told us all postseason he hasn't felt any pressure, felt the moment feel like it's big for him. As you had to switch his role last night with Tyrese out, how did you see him, change his approach to what he would have to do differently in a game like that?
Well, he's played plenty of point guard for us. There have been stretches where Ty's been unable to play, both last year and this year, and so he has experience there. And guys that put the work in and are prepared tend to have more confidence because they know they've done the work. So, he's one of those guys, and our team really, as a group, we've got very conscientious guys that are great workers and love to compete. So, we'll look forward to getting back out there tomorrow.
Speaking of,
you mentioned doing some good things last night. Obviously, in Game 1, you felt the same way. When you've had 2 games that haven't finished, but it felt like you guys have done a lot of good things. How do you use that as a coach? Is that like reinforcement of guys that were here who have been competing, with this team? Just how do you go about that?
Yeah, you got to be very honest about where you are and how you play it. I mean, in 2 of the 3 games, we've done a lot to dictate the action. They were fortunate. In Game 1. We had a miscue, and then they hit a difficult 3. From a spot in the floor where Brown shoots a very low percentage, and so, but they're good. So you got to give them that. For us, the important thing for us is to learn to be resilient and to stay in this fight and find a way to extend the series. We want to keep playing. We want to get back on that plane and go back up to Boston. And so tomorrow's our opportunity to do that.
How did Tyrese come through today, and do you have any idea what his potential availability could be tomorrow?
I'm not going to talk about that today.
Wanted to go back to Drew. I mean, you've talked a lot just about all the learning experiences involved in this. I mean, how good has that been for him in particular? Just all the scenarios he's had to face in this, the people he's had to guard, the different situations he's had in terms of what his role been in the offense from game to game. I mean, just from a guy that's 24 in his first playoff experience, how much more could you have even asked for as far as the ability to learn in these scenarios?
Yeah, you know, resourcefulness is an underrated trait, you know, with NBA players. Guys that can figure things out. One of the things that his college coach told us, Mark Few, was that, you know, Drew is a guy that figures things out, and he does it very quickly, you know. So beginning of last year, he didn't play. I don't think he played in the first game. He had done a lot of good things in training camp as one of our better perimeter defenders, one of our tougher guys, et cetera. He's finally started to get some minutes. And then, you know, he figured out a way to stay on the floor by adjusting to a two-guard position and being a secondary ball handler in a two-guard position and taking on the tough matchups, you know. So that has carried over to this year. It's one of the reasons that, you know, the Pascal trade made a lot of sense for us. Because, you know, we could slot Drew in there. We had other young players that fit well with our second unit, and, you know, Pascal was a guy that could really help us, which has happened. So, you know, Nembhard he's the quintessential guy that gets overlooked. You know, McConnell, guy that gets overlooked. You know. Guys like Shepard, they get overlooked a little bit, you know. And so, you know, these guys are guys to celebrate, you know. Look at all the guys, look at the great players that have been taken in the second round in recent years. You know, Draymond Green. You know, how's that guy get into the 30s or 40s, you know, the second round? It's just crazy. You know, Jokic was a second round pick. I mean, what are we talking here? You know, it's just, it's amazing. And so, you can't always judge a book by its cover.
You mentioned figuring how Andrews figured things out. Problem solving is such a big part of the postseason. What have you seen from this team being able to figure out different problems as series has gone on, as this series has gone on, as quarters have gone on, as games have gone on?
Well, that's part of being resilient. It's part of having an attitude that is, you know, a glass half full attitude, in that you always can find a way to make things better. You know, that's how you got to do it. And, you know, the NBA game is so fast moving now, and so there's so many events that happen. You've got to be able to move from one event to the other. And, you know, some of the growth we've seen in the playoffs from our guys that are young first-time playoff players, or guys that are young playoff players, is that they've developed better the ability to, you know, go from something that's not so great that happens to the next play, do your job, and then let's try to get a good thing going, you know. So, and that can be tough, because an event can seem catastrophic. You know, especially when you're talking about Boston. I mean, they had 16 points and 6 shots to start the game. And we were all, right off the bat, we were playing from, you know, we were 9 down right off the bat. And so, you know, problem solving through that was a matter of, you know, doing better defensively, keeping our pace and our aggression offensively, and then, you know, tomorrow we've got to avoid that kind of a start.
Just on that start, I know coming into the game you were confident that the offense would hold up even without Tyrese, and you spoke about the confidence in those guys. But when you have a start like that, how much do you need to see it as well with a young team? I know they've played without him before, but in a playoff scenario, maybe you don't get the result, but how do you think the team will with confidence they can do it without Tyrese?
Well, this group, as constituted last night, has won a significant number of games without Tyrese. So 6-4, 6-4 in our last 10 before last night. So you know, there's confidence is not an issue there. You know, the NBA game comes down to execution. Execution meaning, you know, your share of loose balls. You've got to control the possession stats by keeping turnovers down, and you've got a defensive rebound. You know, so our rebounding was pretty good last night. You know, we did well with loose balls. We had some untimely turnovers, and we had some defensive mistakes that are very correctable. But when you make those mistakes against their level of players, you pay a heavy price very quickly. And we had too many of those. So that's something we got to fix.
You look at the damage Horford did from beyond the three-point line last night. With all the talent that they have offensively, is that something that you almost, I'm not going to say you're going to give it up, but you almost have to deal with knowing that they have guys like Tatum and Brown and Holiday that can put pressure on their end?
Well, there are things we can do to take away the easy looks for Horford. That was an execution issue last night. We're gonna have to do better in that area. That's one of the areas. I mean, you made 6 threes, whatever it was. You know, it's a lot, and then one in the corner. I mean, and Tatum makes an unbelievable behind the back pass to get it to him. So, look, their skill and talent is unquestioned. Okay, but are there things that we can do to make it harder on them? And the answer is yes, and we're going to have to do that tomorrow.